All right, welcome to episode 5 of Trust Talks, where we speak to the most innovative and influential minds in the space. My name is Pav. I'm going to be your host for today, where as we discuss a general market update and what's happening with liquidity moving over to BNB over the last couple of days. Today, we're joined with 3 special guests. We've got Jamie, the founder of Wall Street Bets, Adrian from Burb, and Elijah Boom. How are you guys? A pleasure to have you on the show. Let's head over to Jamie first.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very good. Looking forward. Like always, the beginning of the day is great because nothing bad has happened yet. So as of now, I was just locking in my longs. Right, I did pretty well yesterday. Closed out. I tend to not leave things open overnight if I because I do leverage long perpetuals and stuff. Just but yeah, doing well. I cannot complain yet. We have this conversation at nighttime. I think my answer is going to be a little different.
I've never heard that before. It's good in the morning because nothing bad has happened yet. Let's head over to Adrian. How are you, buddy? Pleasure to have you on the show.
I appreciate it. It's all good. Pleasure to meet you as well, Jamie. And Elijah Boom, what a legend this guy is. Look at this beautiful black suit that he's got, man. What a handsome bastard. Yeah, all good, man. I mean, I'm pretty much excited. I'm not a degenerate, trader myself. I used to do it on a day trading basis and scalping. Of course, it blew up a couple of accounts. I 10x'd it, 20x'd it, then I blew it all up. So I burned millions of dollars basically, on bad projects and made all sorts of possible fucking mistakes you can name in the game. So I know what not to do, and I just, being a CMT, I'm kind of like much more on the quantitative analysis side and building the strategies and the quant strategies. So I'm a trend follower with the ATR volatility filter. So I position myself in the direction of the trend, and so far trends are rising. So I'm on the rising train as well, and probably this is next on the horizon is what I call the end game. Next couple of months before the whole thing blows up into the summer, typically slows down, and maybe who knows? Everybody expects a double top in Q4. The problem is what it never comes, right? Because it came last time. Doesn't mean it's going to come this time.
Hey, Adrian, if you're a technical trader, like volatility specifically, let me recommend you use ADR, the daily range.
I know ADR. Yeah.
I've had so much more success with that than with pretty much any other. I tend to just do like very basic technicals. I've done them all, but as far as like an actual one that I use, the most successful I've ever had is the ADR, especially for coming up with price targets.
There we go.
Love it. Yeah, I'd love to touch the base with you on that as well. Good stuff.
Amazing. Yeah, thanks for the intro as well. And just touching on your predictions for what's happening in the next couple of months. We're actually going to be touching that on the show, just taking a little bit of a deeper dive into what the thoughts are. Last but not least, over to Elijah Boom, the man himself. How are you? Pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you also to see my old friend here, Adrian. We've been enough in this space. We know each other from a long time. And yeah, Trust Wallet is one of the first wallet that I had, and one of the first companies I supported in before even Binance fully acquisition. So I know the history of Trust Wallet, and I'm always saying it might be a difficult wallet compared to some of them, but it's the best and secured wallet so far by all means. From security part, it's number one.
Yeah, one of the world's most trusted wallets with over 190 million users. So, really, really proud of that. Approaching 200 million, which we're really excited about. Let's head straight into a general market conversation, guys. We've got the 3 of you here today. Really honored to have you guys. And I wanted to start with recent volatilities. We're hearing mixed reviews at the moment. We have some experts believing that we're heading for a bullish breakout. Others think there's a larger correction coming. What key indicators are you looking at right now, and what are your views on what's coming next? Let's head over to Jamie first.
I mean, from a technical perspective, strictly agnostic and objective speaking, it's ranging right now, which means, and this sounds really stupid, but for a trader, it actually makes sense. It's either going to go up or it's going to go down when we're done with it, right? It sounds logical and stupid, but there's actually a trading strategy around that. The phase that we're in and the phase that we're about to get in, you can monetize that. So that's just the objective. But I right now is, the types of trading that I do, that's really short term. I'm looking at these little things. Overall, if I were to guess, educated guess based off of many factors and justifications, I think the breakout is back to the upside.
Amazing. It's either going to go up or it's going to go down. But in your opinion,
That's a technical analysis answer, and only those people will realize that doesn't sound stupid. For people that just like degens that like to go moon, they're like, what the hell kind of answer was that? I have more reasons to believe it's going to go up than it is going to go down.
I love that. Let's head over to you, Adrian. Next, same question to you. What's your thoughts on what we're going to be expecting to see in the next 30 days, 60 days?
Oh man, Jim hit it right on the nail, right on the head, I'd say. Yeah. So ranging, of course, and by the trading range, we understand a situation where the market doesn't develop any sort of like a consistent trend, right? Like a tendency of the price action to continue in one direction or another, which means that it's just kind of like back and forth, like a ping pong game, right? Like a table tennis, and it's just probably taking the liquidity of the both sides of the over leveraged positions, kind of like, which was so frustrating to over leveraged traders, which is why I lost a lot of money back in my early days on a full-time trading career. There is, of course, like a lot of behavioral psychology that can be quantified, right? As in, people typically fear, and like most of the traders are typically loss averse, risk averse. As in, if they approach a resistance, right, even if this resistance doesn't exist, they're going to fear, okay, because someone else is going to think, okay, there might be like a resistance, or it's like $100,000, it's $120,000, this round number magic, which is completely irrelevant, but it materializes itself, right? And it fluctuates on the surface of it. It makes it real, right? Because we believe there's like some special attachment towards the resistance that is only existing in our imagination. Because of the thought priming effect in psychology, we actually materialize it and act as if it was there, which materializes itself and causes the self-fulfilling prophecy effect.
And I want to add to that, nice round numbers is like exactly what you just said. And with that, nice round number is 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. That's as freaking like round as you could ever possibly get.
Oh man, it's special. I agree. It's special. It's special. And typically, the good side is, of course, because there's a cluster of orders that is just kind of like consuming the opposing, and creating this opposing force initially. Typically, when you start seeing this massive, the sell side of the resistance is kind of like consumed. This is where, first of all, you have a lot of buying pressure that pierces through it, and at the same time, where we have a lot of shorters, like I said, and people who oppose this direction, believing that the resistance is going to maintain and continue the way it did in the bounce. Had bounced a couple of times before to the downside, and as a result, this basically creates some sort of like a short squeeze, right? So we not only have an actual technical breakout for the price level where it just pierces through the previously broken resistance, and that encourages the actual bidding and the buyer demand. On the other side, it squeezes the entire short game, of the traders that are off leverage. So if there comes a breakout, or actually when there comes a breakout, and I agree with Jamie, of course, you never know until it's obvious in hindsight which direction it breaks out. The overall tendency of the markets is that they're more likely inclined to continue in the direction of a preceding trend rather than to reverse all of a sudden, right? If you have a bull market that lasts on the 200-day moving average basis for the last 2 years or so, and it continues to climb up for like $19,500 all the way to $70,000, $80,000, well, then there is a clear, distinct direction of the market that is going for, right? And despite some local fluctuations, it ultimately, mean reverses back to the rising trend. So all in all, the rising conditions, bull market continues, local fluctuations, local chop, right? Like there's of course a lot of always around the elections and kind of like like we had yesterday, hot CPI coming in and higher than expected. This is what locally draws us down and locally kind of like just slow us down, but it doesn't change the trend direction. It doesn't change that it's a bull market. It doesn't change that it's just a matter of time until we actually keep climbing higher. And all the other kind of like other on-chain / aka fundamental indicators based on the intrinsic value and the amount of transactions happening on the blockchain, the market blows is not significant. Like the net unrealized profit and loss is like 55% against 75% or more. That typically triggers like warning peaks, not even peaks, but the warnings of the peaks. MVRV, market value realized value, expressed in a z-score as its number of standard deviations against the mean, is close to 2.6, 2.7 right now against 7 that historically triggered historical rallies, which means that there's at least 2.5 x or so that we have the upside potential, placing us anywhere between like $250,000 and even $300,000 at times for the market peak, just to give us a warning about the peak, right? So much upside, trends continue, local fluctuations, most likely explosives break in anytime soon. Until May, we have strong lineup on the seasonal calendar. Summer slowdown, so I'm not expecting craziness in the summertime, but things happen. It's the end game.
Yeah, I think we've seen year on year where you see that massive slowdown that happens over summer. I think, at May we will begin to see that cool off. So I agree with that also. Elijah Boom, I wanted to just get your take on the macroeconomic factors that are maybe influencing this. So, what are your thoughts on how macroeconomics is affecting price action at the moment?
So I'm just gonna be simpler, like mashallah, Adrian, he likes to always dive deep. I'm more in a simpler direction a bit. I believe next month, April, will be pretty good. And here we're gonna find many projects that waiting to launch. They're gonna start launching. We start already seeing that happening now.
Yeah.
And before the end of April, people will start cashing out in a good amount, because the market will drop after, and then we're gonna have few months of sideways and then little bit dip, and then we're gonna go up again, but that will be the final one, and then we're gonna go back to the few years of sideways down cycle. But yeah, many people already because for me, chart is a chart that is really hard to always fully indicate. But what I add on that is what I know from the VCs and all these people, and I can tell you many of them are already cashing at least 15% out, already cashed out 15%.
Wow.
And the investment in new projects is not happening as much as before, and that gives you enough indication that there is not much appetite at the moment to invest, because the cycle is not gonna remain too long. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, three really different answers, but all equally interesting. So thank you guys for sharing those. General similar sentiment across all three, right? We're expecting to see some volatility, a price to the upside in Q1, maybe into Q2, but then as we head into summer, a decrease in price action, some consolidation across those August, September months, which you see in traditional finance as well, and then maybe potentially an increase on the back end of the year. And then, like you mentioned there, Elijah Boom, into a sideways downward consolidation into a bear market, which actually is giving me PTSD from the last market. So let's enjoy the sentiment while it's here. I wanted to shift the conversation a little bit into where we're seeing liquidity and where we're seeing mindshare at the moment. Retail flooded into Solana during the meme coin craze, but with BNB gaining a lot more momentum. In your opinion, what's the biggest factor that's influencing where liquidity moves at the moment? Like, what is influencing what narratives, token incentives, and market conditions are doing? Let's start over Jamie.
First, I just want to say, like Adrian's answer, that's the first time that I've ever heard a response that is 100% compatible with a Wall Street trader. Like, there's not a single word or anything that was very specific to crypto, which to me is just very telling about the evolution and the maturity and the integration and the adoption of crypto. Like, every single thing, it's at no point did he use the word, well, because you have the transparency on the blockchain and the DEX and I was actually, it took me by surprise. But with regards to the liquidity, I will talk the specifics about crypto. You see a little bit less about that in the stock market, right? In the stock market, you don't see people selling Facebook to buy whatever, like Apple, right? Like, there was one example actually during GameStop where that legitimately happened, where the funds were getting short squeezed. They needed to come up with capital, and they were selling off their other positions to be able to put up the collateral, which actually adversely affected all the other stocks. But outside of that is a specific to crypto situation. And it's kind of strange in that the money chases not only between one chain to the other, even within Solana, it goes from one coin to the other. And nothing is more evident than when Trump launched his coin. It was so galvanizing that it quite literally drained it from all his fellow Solana coins, right? So yeah. It's not only cross-chain issue, it's like it's intra chain as well.
It was actually 4 million wallets that were onboarded through that one.
I've heard so many metrics. I went to some Solana Apex Foundation thing here in Mexico last week, and I don't remember the stats, but they were mind blowing with regards to the number, the amount of volume, and the number of newcomers. Like, it's just, and sometimes when we talk about like meme coins and all these different things, all in all, I personally think they are counterproductive to humanity. Like, once you put everything together, but there is a very productive side effect or a positive externality, one of which is it attracts attention. It comes into newcomers. It's a gateway drug, right? So it's not necessarily, so it helps absorb some of this impact of this phenomenon of liquidity moving from one thing to some other thing, right? Whether it's a chain or a coin. The fact that you have additional capital coming into the system overall is a positive thing. So, that's a good side of the meme coin thing. And then the other side of it, well, I won't talk about the other one because it wasn't the question. But yeah, right now, because although crypto is huge and the adoption is huge, the percentage of the world population is this big. And because of that, the actual amount of physical money, not market caps and not like that, the actual money is not, the type you can then put into your bank account is not that much relative to the valuation of the crypto market as a whole. Therefore, making it more sensitive to it, therefore making it more susceptible to that. And right now, we're getting some bullish news on Binance, right? They're cozying up with the US, like dropping the legal efforts, and I'm also seeing a lot of chatter kind of picking up on there. Personally, I think that if Binance were to get the green light in the US, that would actually be extremely beneficial, because although crypto is international, does not pay attention to borders, whatever, there is a little bit of restrictions, right? If you want to use Binance in the US, it's a little bit trickier than it is. People know how to get around that, but the masses don't. And so I think that the liquidity going into Binance, I think it's more like, if you take, it's more like leveling out the liquidity across the different legitimate main chains. So it does look like maybe Solana is losing a little bit of liquidity and it's going over to this right here. But I do think that all cups are getting filled at the same time. And I very much welcome, it's a painful process, and it actually ends up, making a lot of headaches. But in the bigger picture, I welcome the fact that for whatever reason, Binance is now getting larger adoption, so that it can also be just as international, just as universal and easy to interact with. Then you can all do all these cross chain. There's also a lot of people making a lot of efforts to try and make technologies that hide these L1s, right? So that they don't have to think about it. They just pick the coin and do the thing, and they seamlessly, everything takes place underneath. This liquidity move, or whatever we're calling it, actually helps the efforts to make crypto universal, right? Liquidity in crypto without having to specify it.
It's actually some really, really good points there. And I was actually looking on chain as you were speaking about that. You're incredibly accurate with the amount of liquidity that's moving over. So from Solana in the last 7 days alone over to BNB chain, we're hitting 40 billion. From ETH, we're looking at 3.5 billion. From Arbitrum, we're even seeing some smaller amounts, 10 billion. So a lot of that activity is moving across. And you're saying like all of these cups are getting filled. I know it wasn't the question, and you did touch on it, that sort of less advantageous or darker side of meme coins. And the question that I sort of have as a result of that is, is Solana drying up because there's too much PvP there? We saw what happened with Dave Portnoy. We've seen what happened, with the amount of projects that are coming and that are rugging. The statistics are crazy. Our degens, our trade is looking to move where there isn't the retail. It was almost more retail. Everyone came on Solana, and then it got too PvP, and people were rugging publicly on live shows and live streams. And then, the smarter traders are thinking, let me go where there is liquidity, because we know that there is on BNB chain, but where there's less people, and I can get more of those, 20, 30, 40, 50 X's where, there are a lot more fewer and further between to come by on Solana at the moment.
That last statement you made, I agree with 100%, right? The fact that there is less dense, right? Less populated area, but there's greater inefficiencies, greater opportunities to That's the case. That's a universal statement. I agree with that. You know, but the PvP, whatever, like everything that you just said, if you replace many of those words that are specific to this particular cycle with other words, like instead of meme or celebrity coins, you use a word like ICO, right? Yeah. It's happened before, like, and it happened in the same shit, different. I don't know, same thing, different year. And so it's nothing new. And quite frankly, for the longest time, I stayed out of crypto. I was actually not into it until 2021. And I saw from the outside the ICO, and I said, "Look at that crap! It's just pumping up penny stocks, whatever." It, you know, validated my reason for not staying. Now that I'm in it, I actually have shifted my perception a little bit. I say it's a net negative, but it does have positive. Why? Because survivors of every cycle end up with a new model, like whichever innovation takes place ends up actually being the status quo that people can follow and improve upon for later. But I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. This PvP thing is a game. People do it. You just said it. They do it live. The rug thing, that's just despicable, and I think that's like fraudulent. It's wrong. But on the other side of when it's like fair game PvP, right? It is the entertaining game. People do lose money.
Capital markets
trading anything, right? And the difference that I'm seeing as we go from the 2017 to now, 2017, you're having initial coin offering. They're borrowing like terminology from Wall Street to make themselves legitimate, right? On the 21 side, they decide to change to their own language. They're using DAOs, they're using dApps, they're using white papers, they're using utility, right? They're starting to use words that say this is legitimate, this is a roadmap, and this is the future, and this is good. Yeah. Now they don't give a. Am I allowed to curse? Now they don't care. Now they don't care. Now they're calling things fart coins. They're not even doing a website with a paper. They just throw up a pump fund, a Telegram, and a Twitter account, and boom, like they're skipping the entire process. They're being unapologetically honest about what is actually taking place, and they're shoving it in people's faces while naming it what they are. Personally, I'm getting a little tired of it, because it doesn't it is fun, but it gets to the point where it's like, all right, it's time to start saying, let's start to migrate to some useful stuff. And actually I'm starting to see, I'm starting to get more out of the inbound information and requests and stuff that I'm getting. There's been this slow shift. There's been a lot of meme stuff earlier in the past few months. And for the past few weeks, it's been more, hey, let's do something that's actually valuable. So, so I think we're shifting into that side.
Yeah, and I think it's like it's due now. I was looking at some of the numbers and some of the statistics of how many coins have been released, and we discussed it on our show last week. An exponential amount. Let's head over to Elijah Boom. Same question to you. Just what's your thoughts on the whole Solana meme coin craze at the moment? How liquidity is moving over to BNB? What's your thoughts on that comparatively to last cycle?
And ask him about the lizard, man. Like, we cannot just not appreciate this beautiful lizard.
See his BNB color, do you see?
Wow.
So basically, the point is, I'm just gonna have a totally different view than what I've heard from both of you guys. The people who are making money in this cycle, the most people are making money in this cycle are the 18 and 19 years old, and they are using tools that allow them to do that. If you looked today, for an example, at Pump Fund and the one in BNB chain, which is for meme, even if you have a bundling tool, you cannot go and take more than 20 wallets in for meme. So it's extremely hard to do it, because 20 wallets holding the amount of the supply, it will be too much of a supply. While in the pump fund one, no, you can actually go from the bonding curve and continue ripping it off till you can reach maybe 95% of the supply. Now, there are also other tools that the way it's even designed, I don't know, before Trump it should be illegal. Now I'm not sure about it, because they own the custody of your creations. I don't want to name them because I know exactly how they operate. I know exactly what they do. I know exactly most of this celebrity shit, how it's happening. And it's all kids behind the scene, and they are the one doing all these things, right? The point is, people went to BNB because most of these tools are not yet there. So it's like the OG chain, you know what I mean? And the second thing about BNB chain, it gives you a little bit slight of the PvP side. You can become a little bit PvE. And how you can become a PvE? Because you have at least ecosystem. Means if I'm building, Ramadan, please close the door. If I'm building a project on Solana, I'm basically alone, right? Either me and the cabal, or either me with the supply, and then I do this one candle red chart, right? And by the way, these tools offer you to go and sell 100% of all the wallets that you bundled, just FYI, and one click. That's why when you see it red, it's not like someone going one by one and just selling them, right? But in BNB chain, no, you have a lot of ecosystem. You have number one, Pancake Swap. You have Trust Wallet. But please stop doing me advertisement every time I open the wallet. It just sometimes makes me annoyed. I just need to buy fast. And you have BNB chain, right, from the BD team and all that, where they can offer you spaces. You have programs where you can be in the most valuable build, right? And now something got introduced new, which is Binance Futures, which is an easy access for small organic community to go and list in the futures, because it's a bit way easier than being listing in a spot. You don't have anything of what I just mentioned now in Solana. The thing we want to see also, and which is to make it easable, to make Trust Wallet a bit more friendly. I love Trust Wallet, but we needed to make it more friendly for these DJs, because they are the people who are willing to take a risk losing their tokens while not taking a risk of losing time. But I mean, that's the major move happened, right? And when I'm talking to you, I'm receiving around 50 people telling me, Ilja, what is the dog name of CZ? So of course, one of the main things, CZ as well, he actually came to this. I mean, to be honest, it wouldn't happen without CZ. People were waiting for CZ to take the initiative. And yeah, and it's happening now. That's it.
Yeah, and Adrian, I wanted to get your take as well and just touch on a couple of the points. I know you were nodding there in agreement with Elijah. I'd love to get your take on that as well.
First of all, I always have this trouble talking with Elijah because I didn't like, this is the guy that told me about Pepe Coin when it was like 200K market cap, I think. And I told him, this guy's, you know, I'm not gonna do it. of course, as silly as it gets, right? And I learned not to counter trade and not to disagree with Elja. Call it the hard way, if you will, on the missing out on the opportunities. Although, all in all, listen, I think collectively, bottom line is that we are all bored, especially in the sideways markets where people fucking die off. I'm sorry, people die off, you know, out of boredom, literally, right? The more, of course, they are much more inclined to sell, you know, towards the right hand side of the channel when we kind of like fluctuate sideways, because they fear and they say, okay, we're not gonna get out of this range, and they just capitulate, right? Which is why you typically see that the longer the range takes to resolve, the bigger the breakout is, right? Because the clearer the way is in either direction. But speaking of this boredom, I think we just create our own initiatives out of this boredom, right? Of course, Solana thrived, you know, and there is no debate about that. So I think we're just seeing a different renditions of those Solana kind of like rallies, where we self-organize ourselves as the community within this overall, you know, adherent chaos that we cannot really remove, right? So I think it's just a bunch of people trying to build a narrative, and they succeeded it to an extent that, just to back up with the numbers, not even 10 days ago, or 7 days ago, a week ago, we were talking about $300,000 in fees on the BNB chain, at least per token terminal, all the way up to 2.1 million in fees alone, which means 7x in the last 7 days on just the profitability of the network just coming from the fees, which tells you that it's an actual viable signal. It's not noise, it's not coincidental. This means there's like this big breakout, big break first, you know, there's something going on that wasn't happening there before.
Yeah.
So it means there is this narrative changes and this shift towards the BNB chain. And of course, with having those strong players and I should say easy targets such as CZ, you know, on the call it behind the steering wheel of the BNB to an extent, right? this is just likely, a good candidate for blowing up, nicely. You're gonna see probably a couple of successful BNB based kind of like memes flying. May have to do with CZ's dog or not. You see the LGS lizard. Who knows what's gonna happen after this? After I have 3 parrots, myself. I'm an animal guy myself. Though all things concerned, once in a while we see this shift, right, where people get bored when the market is saturated. They're going to search for another one, and if there is no initiative already created, they're going to create and self-organize, the whole thing themselves. And very often you have this couple of drivers, couple of those driving bigger personas, bigger account personas that are capable of driving the whole thing. Just I think Jamie basically knows so much about how to build the strong thriving community, right? Last time I checked, I think you were close to 1 million followers, right, Jamie? So there's a whole army of people, right? And imagine you have a couple of strong personas like that with good charisma, with who are well spoken, silver tongue, and they have a little bit of they know how to play it out in the marketing. It's very easy to caught people into this quote unquote first trap when they are just thirsty for getting anything out of their day because it's so fucking boring. They're just dying out of boredom. And then all of a sudden someone comes to them, hey, there's this new thing going on BMG chain. Maybe you could take a look. And then boom, all of a sudden 7x in 7 days, on the fees alone, right? Crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like I get it to an extent. Like, are people looking for the next thing because they're bored, or where and when do you deploy capital? One of the questions I had for both of you is, Solana is often called a retail chain. BNB is considered more institutionally supported. Do you agree with these labels? What do they mean for liquidity flow? What do you think in terms of the people that are using these chains?
I agree that Solana is retail. I can't disagree that the Binance is more institutional, but I can't award it the exclusive rights to that title. There's lots of chains that support that functionality for different things, because when we say institutional, there's so many implementations of institutional blockchain that I don't know if any one particular one takes care of it. It's certainly the most established, professional, smooth. Like it's a very robust, very capable, extremely flexible, like sophisticated. There's more it's got more knobs and buttons and levers you can push, many more than Solana, right? So like, Ethereum is to Bitcoin as far as flexibility, is Binance is to Solana, right? So if people want to get more sophisticated with leveraging some of the capabilities regarding smart contracts, regarding like whatever you might want to do to innovate in a way, a lot about crypto. First, it started off as the Bitcoin, and that narrative I'm not going to repeat because I'm assuming that people know it. But once that narrative was maturing, then you started getting voices saying, hold on a second, this blockchain technology could actually be used and modified for other purposes, right? In the future, people are going to be able to tokenize their real world assets. And this is long time ago, right? And obviously we're starting to see that play out. And so we go away and we need to break this mentality. And I think that thanks to the removal of regulatory risk, we're going to be able to see projects that leverage the actual capabilities. And I know that I'm speaking like arbitrarily, right? But make things that aren't just a coin that goes up and down, because that's boring. That exists everywhere. The futures, commodity, stocks, options, CFDs. Like there's lots of places where you can buy things whose numbers go up and down. But with Binance specifically, with regards to the sophistication, and this example, by the way, is what actually got me to buy into this, and it was through Binance. And I'll get a little bit technical, and I know that Adrian's going to appreciate this, but and hopefully at least 10% of who's watching this. In regular stock market, you have these things called leveraged ETFs, right? They basically do 3x whatever the underlying is. An ETF is usually a bundle of stuff together. Now they're approving single asset ETFs. So basically, if you buy a Tesla ETF, that's 3x. Whenever Tesla moves up, one like percent, whatever they will, moves 3%, right? Because of the math related to these things, if something is ranging like we are now, if Tesla is going up and down and up and down, your ETF that's leveraged goes up and down too. But because of pure math, under this ranging condition, there's this decay component where if you hold it long term, regardless of Tesla maintaining its value, your leveraged ETF loses value. And that's a known thing, right? And then the opposite is true when it ranges. Binance decided to say, hold on a second, we got the ability to make these smart contract ETFs. We can make our own leveraged ETFs. I forget what they call them, but we're going to call them variable leveraged ETF to mitigate the risk or the effect of this volatility decay by making this thing intelligent, such that if the thing underneath is ranging, it's going to automatically tone its leverage down to 0.25%, or it's like 1.25%, barely anything, so that is a very minimized effect. But if it starts ranging, it's going to automatically bump itself up to 4x. So they've eliminated this risk using technology, something that's incapable of doing in Wall Street. That's the type of innovation that not only Binance can do, crypto as a whole can do. And so in those respects, you can do more sophisticated things with that. And I'll stop with the next one. The perpetual futures, to me, like when I first heard about it, it blew my mind, because I come from Wall Street where there's futures where you expect to get delivery on whatever the thing that it was that you're doing. Although most people just use it for the price action, because the futures themselves are instruments by which you can actually pre-purchase things, and they will physically get delivered to you or whoever's holding the bag at the end of the month. They have expiration dates, but they're super leveraged, and that's why they're fun, and that's why people trade them. Binance comes around and says, why don't we just make perps? Like, why don't we just make perpetual futures? What does that mean? It means it doesn't have an expiration date, because like nobody actually wants to get like barrels of crude oil like cows, right? Like
there were stories like that, right? Where there were like battle oils like delivered in front of someone else who just forgot to kind of like cancel.
No. What's actually was really fascinating is during COVID, you remember that the price of oil, crude oil, went negative, and there was a lot of people didn't understand why. It's because
that was exactly that time,
and it's quite literally the hot potato that whoever was in physical possession of this futures contract had the legal like obligation to receive barrels of oil. People like, I don't want this. I don't have where to store it. The storage was all full because all the airplanes and cars were parked, right? And so quite literally, whoever was holding the bag had to go to the warehouse, rent a warehouse, so it would cost them money to get the delivery. So they were willing to pay other people to get this thing off of their hands, right? Like, yeah. But anyway, so Binance takes this thing, is like, dude, like, just let's cut through the BS. Like, people are using this for leverage. They don't actually want the thing underneath it. Make a forever future, just leverage something, right? Like 125x, and they do it intelligently too, because they force you to reduce leverage as your position increases, which is a very responsible thing to do. Not for the trader. I don't give a crap if the trader loses money. All I do is leverage trading. I've also blown my account a billion times, but I've figured out how to not do that as much now. So like, so I don't care about them being responsible for the retail. That's the lesson for them to learn, but they're responsible for the system because of the way these leveraged instruments are related with each other, the way they're able to produce these effects. You have this insane trickle-down effect, such that when they liquidate your account because you're irresponsible, it doesn't just sell off your Bitcoin leverage position. It'll sell off all your other leverage positions. Because they're leveraged, that means somebody somewhere underneath that's having to like mimic this price action through collateral is actually having to sell the underlying. And you have this multiplier effect, right? And that's why you get these 10% drops on Bitcoin, which shouldn't happen on that type of asset of that size, of that maturity. And so they're wanting to actually limit the way they do it. Like, so TLDR, Binance is much better equipped to do a lot cooler, sophisticated stuff that is innovative in both the finance world as well as the business world.
Yeah, some really great points there. And I'm just conscious of time, so I wanted to shift the conversation into future outlook and opportunities that we see. So, with liquidity moving faster ever between chains, we've seen that 40 billion, for example, move from Sol to BNB alone in the last 4 days. I know I've given a 7-day time frame, but the majority of that mind share and liquidity moved recently. What are the key signals we should watch out to predict where capital will go next? Adrian, I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so if we like the question, if you don't mind repeating the question, because I'm not sure I understood it properly.
Yeah, so what are the key signals that we should be looking at to see where liquidity is going to go next?
You mean after BNB chain or into BNB chain?
Just in general, yeah, like maybe after BNB chain, or even like let's say liquidity doesn't stay there. You know, let's say a few memes.
Answer him like this, Adrian. Adrian, give him like this.
I know what you mean. Exactly. I know what you mean. No, listen, I mean, but ultimately Bitcoin is king, right? Just like Jamie said, it's like still 50, 60%, 55, 60% dominance. You know, any kind of like a minor, you know, turmoil that happens, you know, all the altcoins, everybody floods back, you know, to Bitcoin, which is what shoots the dominance up. You know, Ethereum is like 10, 12% dominance of the market, so it's no competition there. But by the way, I think many people gave up on the Ethereum already. I don't think that's a wise.
Ethereum is like Yahoo.com, in my opinion.
Yeah, also, right? Except that it's like the slowest runner until everybody burns out, and then it's when it takes over, right? But all in all, you know, I think the easiest answer is going to go to the OG coins, right? And the Bitcoin, Ethereum. Except that Ethereum is, like I said, sluggish and slow. So on the relative basis, it hadn't paid off well to kind of like just keep on and holding onto Ethereum. So. And that tendency is very strong, and it lasted for the last 2-3 years, right, on the BTC relative basis again. So it's not been the wisest choice to be strongly positioned on Ethereum. I think it was Vanek that produced this actual ideal Bitcoin against Ethereum, kind of like a portfolio allocation attribution towards like 70-30. I think that was driving the best Sharpe ratio for such a portfolio, for the best kind of like risk-adjusted returns out of the whole thing. And speaking of those institutions, right, BNB chain is just like you rightly mentioned, it's not necessarily the retail chain per se as much as Solana, right? Solana is so much more about, it's silly to say that, but it's so much more about the lifestyle, right? It's so much more about mainstream. There are so many people that are dragging, you know, all those like traditional Web2 influencers and all those celebrities and all those drinks and rap music artists and porn stars, whatever, you know, they come up and release their own meme coin, and they release their own meme coin only, you know, Solana, right? So that's why I'm saying it goes well beyond crypto itself. And Jamie kind of like made the right point that
I didn't see porn stars, Adrian. I don't know where you search.
Fuck me, man. All right, that's another problem, right? You don't have that on BNB per se, right? And when you don't have that on BNB, well, that's because mainly it's the Binance ecosystem that has all those projects kind of like building in the BNB.
Yeah, would you not say that's volume though? I don't think those or even mindshare. I don't think those celebrities are going to Solana because, you know, because they have a view on Solana. I think they're doing it because that's where they're told that's where the liquidity is, and that's where you're going to get.
It's because there's a website where you click 3 buttons and you're good to go.
Exactly.
The whole thing is streamlined for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Elijah,
so that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, Elja, let's head over to you just on your thoughts on that as well, just in terms of, you know, what can we look at as a prediction for where liquidity is going to flow next? What's your thoughts on that?
First of all, see your hat. I got the OG hat.
Street Fighter.
Let's go.
Oh man.
Oh, I love that.
You for paying
up on me there, man.
Because I didn't get paid.
I have all the merchants for all Binance ecosystem.
You've been shilling Trust Wallet since you got on here. I want to get compensation for this.
No, I've been with them. Look, this is even Binance Boxer.
Oh man, fine. Answer your question. I'll be right back. Answer your question. I'll be right back.
Okay, so basically, I don't really see, in my kind of opinion, BNB chain as an institutions, because at the end, the institutions mainly come to blockchain. They don't come mainly for products, unless it's a TVL related product where you're gonna go to family houses, blah 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 blah, to go and get the liquidity from there. The point is the BNB chain is, oh shit, there's a tweet I have to look. Anyway, the point is BNB chain, they have builders. Means they have people with innovations. Oh, look, okay, there's a competition happening live here now. He's also buying a shirt. So yeah, so there are many builders in BNB chain. And why is there are many builders? Because BNB chain is an ecosystem. Solana, when you go there, it's just a chain where people alone. But when you are building things, let's say in AI, RWA, DPen, etc., you speak with the BD team who actually read everything you do. In Solana, you're only gonna speak with retailers, and the retailers, they don't even know what the hell you're saying. But then BNB job is to strategize them in the right way to put them back to the retailers. At the end, we're all retailers. Big people are not sitting on social media and waiting. They're big traders, or you can see them behind the scene, or they're not even there. But the point is, like other chains, which is, I don't know, like Mantra is just mainly, it's the main sponsor for Binance events, etc. But they are mainly in RWA, and they have big backing from big companies around the world, right?
Yeah.
So again, to simplify it, the retailers on both sides. The difference is BNB chain has builders that who can actually build things that support the entire EVM ecosystem. That's it.
Yeah, really good point. And one of the other questions I wanted to ask Elja while you're there as well, and we can open it up, is we've obviously seen Solana's dominated in the last 6 to 12 months, right?
Mm.
So we know that there's going to be a multi-chain future. We know that people are going to be chain agnostic. You know, moving forward, do you think there's going to be one or two chains that dominate, or do you think that all chains are going to rise and, you know, you're going to see, you know, a plethora of chains that are dominating and liquidity spread evenly across them? What's your thoughts on like certain chains dominating in certain cycles?
I'm not gonna lie. This cycle we have any American chain, it will be performing well.
Okay.
Avalanche, Cardano, blah blah blah. Now, performing in terms of a price or in terms of a builders as well, BNB chain is the most mixed between organic and backing from Binance itself as a chain. This is actually, it's the only chain that it's mixed from both. There is someone trying to do it, which is base, but they're way behind.
Yeah.
They're trying to make the same, but it's still very very behind in my kind of opinion. Can they come to the cycle? No. Also remember, in BNB chain they have something called OPBNB, which is under optimism, and that's made for people who are building things that has a lot of on-chain transactions, and they require an extremely low fee than the one on BNB chain. Yet, as you see, the retailers don't give a damn about how much money they pay, so they didn't even jump to OPB. But the time will come for it for sure.
That's actually a really good point, just in terms of how Base have tried to do it as well. You're not seeing anywhere near as many builders building on Base. You're not seeing, I mean, look, they definitely are doing well, but you're not seeing the volume, or you're not seeing as much of, you know, as much of the innovation coming out of Base. At least I
It's
have.
far behind. It's far behind.
Yeah, I'd actually say that's a fair assessment. I mean, I'd like to open that up to you guys as well. You know, feel free to jump in if you want to, just in terms of, are we going to see a chain dominate, or are we going to see liquidity move from one to the other? You know, is there going to be a final winning chain?
I think that there's going to be some losing chains, right? And we're going to end up we're going to end up with like winners. What I'm hoping for, betting on, and really for the better of the system, I want that question to not be relevant. That's right. Like, well. No, I want the underlying technology or chain to be out of view of whoever is using stuff. And I know there's people working on that, such that if you need to do some type of thing, like in Trust Wallet, where you can have all the chains throw, you know, like this, that concept, right? But actually integrated on a more sophisticated level, where liquidity itself isn't concentrated in any one thing. The liquidity is in crypto. And if you want to buy the Trump coin with BNB, the system automatically figures it out for you universally, not just for one bridge, for one thing, for one. I'm just talking seamless integration across the chains. Therefore, the losing chains will drop out. The chains that are good will survive, and people will decide to build on whichever chain is most appropriate for this, right? And one of the biggest, I think one of the things that's been holding back Binance specifically is the difficulty for access within the US. Like it's just a hard thing to be able to get. And it's been unfortunate, because I live in Mexico. I was unaware when I started playing with crypto that my American counterparts physically had to use VPNs and like they had to do crazy things to, you know, like this was before Binance US came out. Like, it was like, and so, you know, I think at the end of the day, we're going for some agnostic chain. There's nothing. Where did the liquidity go? We should not care where's the liquidity in the stock market? Which market is it in? Well, it's in the market, right? Like it's in the stocks. And you can ask me about which stock has more liquidity in it, but the system as a whole is going to get more liquidity. That means all the chains are going to get more liquidity. Right now, because I said in the beginning, there's such a small percentage of the world population that's doing it. The amount of actual like fiat equivalent of money in crypto is relatively small, making that question relevant right now. That question shouldn't be relevant in the future.
That's a good point.
Such that it's seamless. It goes from one to the other. We just need more liquidity in crypto as a whole. And that's the best outcome.
Yeah, it's true. And you were mentioning with Trust Wallet, you can swap across 15 chains within Trust Wallet. That's including Solana, ETH, Polygon, Avalanche, Arbitrum, Optimism, Base, ZSync. So you can all do that in app. And it is a really good point. And I think this is where the intersection of AI is going to come in, where you see that intersection of blockchain and AI, where you're not necessarily actively, you know, bridging across chain. It's all being done through voice, and you can do that seamlessly. And you know, then you're not necessarily picking what chain you particularly, you know, where the liquidity is. You're picking the chain where, you know, you actually want to operate on. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Adrian, did you have any comments just before we wrap up? I know you need to shoot. You got a hard stop.
It's all right. Yeah, I wish I had a Trust Wallet cap as well on my bald head, right?
Me too.
It's gonna drive fast. Yeah, listen, I mean, I agree with Jamie in terms of, you know, approaching the liquidity holistically, and that's in the end why we have this tokenization or WAs. That's why we have Larry Fink talking about tokenization as the next generation of assets. That's why we have, you know, BlackRock talking about tokenizing stocks and bonds. That's why the RWA grows, you know, as a market of the private bonds and the private credit, as the private institutional funds. Like about 80% last year, 100%, you know, preceding year in 2023 through 2024. You know, I think there are a lot of like, but kind of like taking me back to what I repeat about the end game, right? This is what I mean, where each and every single one of those categories that are actually valuable, it's soon going to be the time for them to thrive, all of them together, right? Regardless of which chain they are on. Of course, there's going to be some local, you know, shifting, you know, and chains between left and right, you know, BNB and Solana, and doesn't matter, right? Because in the end, there's going to be like a big kind of like a holistic move. And, you know, institutions have been accumulating Ethereum crazily, right? ETFs are here, of course. Solana ETFs are also to be signed in, and many other, which is allowing basically not only those institutional kind of like interests, but also those actual B2C interests, right? The people that are fearing custody, you know, of holding their own assets because they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to do anything with storing. They don't want to do any flipping.
Yeah.
They don't want to do setting up any
phrases or
any software wallets and all that, because they are not feeling equipped, you know, knowledge equipped enough to making that happen. And quite honestly, when I, you know, me being in a space for the ERC will soon have been like the 9th year rolling. So many chains, so many protocols are so difficult to use these days after having been for so many years in this industry, that honestly I cannot blame those people for not really wanting to deal with anything custody related, right? And they're gonna just go for a simple thing, ETF, right? Yeah. Or a leverage ETF, as you know, as Jamie referred. So all in all, you know, I'd say that it's not wise to give up on the quote unquote forgotten chains, quote unquote forgotten like big OG coins like Ethereum, right? Just because it hadn't been performing well. Of course, it means that it's not paid off well investment wise, but it doesn't mean that it's going to continue like this forever. And it will soon have been like, when I explained to the TradFi people, I was presenting crypto and pitching crypto like a couple of days ago to US Bank in front of the US Bank, right? And they have a lot of what I call like institutional bias. I give them numbers, I show them this is 100%, you know, 145% annualized return on Bitcoin, you know, over the last 14 years on average, right? This is Ethereum, this is this and that. And they say, like US Bank or other people, they say, okay, nice numbers. I don't like this shit anyways, right? I'm not going to buy it because I don't like this. That's what I mean by this institutional bias, right? You can propose numbers to them, you can offer them something that cannot be refuted, something that cannot be denied, cannot be debated, because it's just raw numbers, raw as it gets, right, over the last years. And they're still going to debate it, not because they have like an emotional, logical, rational reason to do it. It's just that they feel, and holding on to something that, something of their conservatism. Those people that create those institutions, they are the ones that buy on the peak as well, right? Because then later they are following in literally all of those, like the reason why all those banks, like, SVB, like, great financial recession, all of that happened is because of emotional failures quite often, right? Of course, cognitive failures as well, but emotional reasons. People, some people do not really handle stress well, to an extent that they make completely silly, stupid mistakes as if they were playing all alone, except that they are stealing, multi-billion-dollar enterprises. And just like that, poof, banks disappear, right? Of course, the governmental policies in terms of the central bank policies, on the monetary systems are not necessarily always helpful, right? Which is why I think it's so important to stick with the rational, stick with the numbers, observe the trends instead of fucking arguing them. Just trend is your friend. Roll with it. That's it.
You're such a traditional trader. I love it.
By the way, Jamie, I hit you follow, but I had no idea how I broke my follow button on you. But I appreciate what you're doing. Incredible stuff, man. Congratulations.
Not a problem. I'd love to talk to you whenever. Like anytime I see like someone that understands. I've been experimenting with a thing I'm not going to mention because I'm not here to shill. But basically, they're trying to use Wall Street dynamics in crypto such that the only way to make money isn't just Moon, right? And I'm trying to instill this dialogue, and it's breaking their heads. They're like, "What do you mean you're not going to shill your own coin?" Because I created my own coin in this little. I'm not going to mention it. Like tiny.
Say the name. I'm have the contract address.
I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to. It's not a celebrity coin. It's an experiment. And so when I tell people explicitly, don't buy my coin, I'm not going to shill it. I can make it Moon with a single tweet, but I'm here to show you how you can make money with a coin that stays and it moves around because there's, so we need some of that. Sorry, I'm passionate.
Gentlemen, I'm gonna have to jump out, but Jamie, Alja, what alleges you are? Love you guys.
Habibi, thank you. Me too. But anyways, tell me about your token later.
I'm not going to show my token later.
Yeah, guys, we do need to wrap up. I've got one final question.
Figure it out.
I've just got one final question, and it's
I have to go. I must go. I must go.
Amazing.
Well, you can ask me. I got time.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, buddy. Just one final question. Beyond, it's a one-word answer as well. So beyond Solana and BNB, are there any other under the radar ecosystems that you're looking at or that you've got your eye on?
There is two specific ones that I'm very much interested in recently, and one of them is Sui, and IOTA is the other one. One is new, one is not. They're both using very similar technology underneath, both of which are freaking impressive. It's like driving a Cadillac versus something else. They have very different things going for them, but I'd keep my eyes on both of those. One's going to make a comeback, one's going to be the comeback story, and the other one's going to be the new kid on the block that takes everyone by surprise. If I were to bet on the next one, like on the next L1 chain, it's going to be one of those two. So my one-word answer is IOTA, Sui.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say massive thanks for jumping on the show today. I really appreciate it. And to everyone who tuned in, especially the Trust Wallet family who join us every week as we head to episode 6 next week. We've got a really, really exciting guest for next week. That's confirmed. I can't share it yet, but definitely drop Trust Wallet a follow and turn on the notifications to find out who that is as soon as possible. Drop Jamie a follow at Wall Street Bets and myself as well. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys on the next episode of Trust Talks. Take care.